Hey guys, this is video 3. I think it will be the final video. In video 1 I explained how to set this up. In video 2 I did a demo of me working on a piece of scratchboard. And like I said, I forgot the big sheet of scratchboard, but I actually think it worked out good because now you can see the difference between the scratchboard drawing and the photograph. Remember that the scratchboard drawing is going to look like a drawing, and that's okay. My bird looks a little deranged in the scratchboard format rather than in its photographic form, but I'm just going to roll with it because I guess crows could be deranged. Did y'all know that crows can remember people's faces? It's pretty wild. Okay, so I am going to pop down and do a little bit of this area during this video because I feel like this area was a little easier because it has the eye, it has the beak, and sorry, I saw that I wanted to make that a little brighter. It's just things that it had things in it that were more drawn, and although this area is going to be the same, you're just looking at lights and darks. I know that a lot of you are going to feel worried about something like this, and it's really important to pay attention to each little piece of texture and not just go through and do repetitive marks, because if you do that, it's just not going to turn out. It's not going to look realistic. You really have to go through and observe the lights and the darks, thinking back to our drawing skills and the charcoal drawing. So I'm going to come back to my transfer, and I'm going to put my little piece of scratchboard under here. You guys would have already done this because you have a big piece of scratchboard. So I'm just going to redo. And then I'm going to transfer the lines that I have on the transfer paper to the scratchboard. That's it. Not a lot of lines. So you should barely be able to see that. And that's better. Before I did my marks just a little bit too dark, or too heavy, sorry. I pressed down too hard. But this is actually perfect because it's just a little bit of an indentation where I can see what's going on. I might can come back through and make things a little darker. Alright, so now I'm going to go right here. Adjust you guys just a little bit so you can see better. Focus you in. Okay, so this line right here is going to be this line. I am glad that I put this right here because now I know where that is. So this is going to be a little harder than that, like I said, because this is just all straight up texture, whereas that had a lot more line work. So I'm going to start here because this is the easiest place that I can see where it is. So this black line right here is going to be right up here, and I don't want to touch that because I want it to stay black, right? So I'm going to work on filling in right underneath that black line, and it's quite a bit of white. A lot of gray too, and it's almost like clumps of lights and darks. So remember, when you're doing this, you don't need to be thinking fur, or like while I'm doing this, I'm not really thinking about feathers. I'm only thinking about where the lights and darks are, and if I work methodically through the lights and the darks, then it's going to turn out looking like fur or feathers or whatever your animal has. If your animal doesn't have fur or feathers and it has skin, like if you were doing an armadillo or something like that, you'll have to find a texture that works for that, and that might be a little more challenging actually. This scratchboard, this little piece right here, is a little bit harder to work with. So some of you might run into that, where parts of the scratchboard are harder to scrape off. I feel like the last piece was easier. Okay, so it starts getting darker down here, and so I'm going to keep making marks, but I'm not putting them as close together because there's more black mixed in to make more of a gray. See right there, it's hard for me to scratch that off. I don't know what happened. Let's see, I'm going to keep going up through here, keeping this black ridge line. Back in here it gets really blurry, but you can still make out some of the lighter marks. They're just really spaced out. Yeah, I think something happened to this sheet of paper because it's got like some residue down here and it's not wanting to scratch off hardly at all. It would be like me to forget, yeah, there's something sticky there, to forget what I needed and then grab the jankiest piece of sample paper that there was. But okay, so that's this swing right here. This black line here, for it to really look black, I've got to come up above it and put in all this stuff, leaving that area untouched. And I'm just drawing in the shading, which sounds like a funny thing to say, because how do you draw in shading? But if we think about shading just being light and dark marks, because you've done shading as blending before, and so this will be different but also the same. So you just keep working around. Over here it gets very dark, so I don't have to do much really. If your animal has a lot of black, you will have to do less. I didn't want to tell you that from the beginning because I didn't want everyone to choose their imagery based on making things easier. If your animal has a lot of white, you're going to be scratching a lot. You don't necessarily have to use this thing to scratch. If you have a ton of white on your image, you could try using like a quarter or something to scratch it, or anything really. Alright, so if I try to put this back in place, it goes about right there. Oops. And then I'll zoom you out, focus you in. And so there's two places that you can see the difference between the photograph and the scratch board. So take your time, guys. I will post some imagery of pieces that are already completed so you can see what that might look like. Don't panic if you mess up. Don't freak out. You can fix it with a Sharpie or a black pen. Go in there and do a little bit of doctoring. But just do your best. I am going to have you post a photo of this for a grade in Canvas, and I will link all of that, and it should be really easy to find. So I hope these videos help. If you have a question, shoot me a message. You can do that via email, or there's a place on Canvas where you can type in a message as well, and that actually goes to my email, so I'll see it really quickly. Good luck, happy scratching, and I hope that you guys are successful with this.